Hello, Christian Metal Group. We're here with Testimony of Apocalypse with Paul and Nick, and we have Jay, the ever so metalhead moderator. I'm Jimmy, and I'm one of the admins of the group. So Jay, why don't you kick us off? What you got on your mind?
All right. You know what? So because the group is called Christian Metal, I think one of the biggest things that we love to ask people that we interview are these two questions. So I'm going to ask both of them. First of all, how did you become a Christian? What was that walk like? And like, what was the process to you all becoming Christians? This is for both of y'all. And then also, how did you discover metal? So let's go from there.
Paul, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll go first. Well, metal, like for me, it was like 1982 when metal really started to kick off in my high school.
Mhm.
And I don't know, it just, I don't know whether I want to say it spoke to me, but I think it did because I just liked it.
Mhm.
And there were a few other, believe it or not, there were a few other kids who were like, yeah, man, this, like heavy metal, this is pretty cool. And that's how it got started.
What was that first one or two bands that you really remember getting into?
Let's see, Quiet Riot.
Wow,
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, like Quiet Riot, Ozzy, obviously, Judas Priest. Who else did I remember? Those were the first. Yeah, it was like Judas Priest, Ozzy, Quiet Riot, and then then Motley Crue, Rat, all those guys started coming on board. But I mean, we were literally like, that was new. When we were getting into it, that was new. Like that, nobody had ever heard that stuff before. So that was my start with that. And then I guess through being in a band, being in bands, wanting to be a musician, was not a Christian at that point. Was just, liked metal. Had a couple friends who were kind of like preaching to me a little bit, and just stuff that they were saying. I was like, yeah, I don't, I went to Sunday school and I don't know if that what you're saying is accurate. So I went home to actually read the Bible as a weapon to go back at these guys saying, this is wrong. Look, this is what it says. This is what it says. This is what it says.
Mhm.
Didn't read the Bible, ended up getting this book out of my parents' like library called the 1980s Countdown to Armageddon.
Oh, I remember that actually.
Yeah. And God used that book. I read it front to cover that night. It was like 5 o'clock. I stayed up awake all night, read that book, and at the end of the book there was a prayer, and it said, if you'd like to know Jesus, if you'd like to have him in your life and have your sins forgiven, pray this prayer. That was it. I did it, and then right after that, all the bands and music that I do it for God, and
That's
that's
awesome.
the way it's been.
I love how you went. You did your own research and everything, and awesome.
Yeah, that's very metal. Like I think especially in the 80s and like thrash metal or whatever, like a lot of the themes were like very I guess Armageddonish. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
It was on a lot of people's minds, maybe because of the Cold War, Reagan era type of thing, and everybody was thinking, nuclear war.
It was it was the nukes. Yeah, it was nuclear.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But that's cool though. It's really cool.
Do you have a copy of the Metal Bible there, Paul?
I do not.
Oh man, got to get that.
I probably should.
That's one of our ministry partners, man. It's awesome.
Yes, sir.
There's got a lot of great testimonies in there.
Yes, sir.
I'll check it out.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, so metal. So I'm a little bit different musical era. So I was more like the early '90s is when I was getting into music.
Mhm.
So I knew Metallica and Testament, but I was really into like the groove metal at the time. So like Pantera and Corrosion of Conformity, and then some of like the classics like Slayer, Anthrax. So I like the classics. I liked a lot of the groove metal. Didn't really get into like new metal so much, like Slipknot a little bit, but kind of mostly stuck around like Lamb of God when they started to really hit the scene.
Did you say groove metal?
Yeah, groove metal.
What
Mhm.
like what's a couple examples of that you?
So like Pantera is considered like the
Okay.
first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Lamb of God would be in that. Like Double Driver's kind of into that. It's more of like where it's it's not all super fast. I mean, you can get into some sludgy stuff like Crowbar, and kind of more doom metal at that point when it gets really slow.
So I was going to
But
ask,
it's
since you brought up Devil Driver, did you follow Josh's career with Day of
no,
Fire?
not closely. I just know
Okay.
some of it.
Day
Yeah.
of Fire was pretty good. They had, it was kind of like a Red Disciple type of band. Now he's
Mhm.
got a new one called American Line, which is
Oh wow.
just rock, I guess, but
Yeah.
awesome.
So that was my kind of introduction. I was into all sorts of music, but as far as metal, that was really there.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then so this is a story that I think I've only told this maybe once on another interview, but Paul was my Sunday school teacher in high school.
Oh
Wow.
wow, nice.
So and we started, I guess, Paul, I don't know if that was like eighth or ninth grade that we kind of started the high school, what was considered the high school Sunday school class. But Paul got a drum set. I think the story goes, right, Paul, that for some
Yeah.
reason God told you to spoke to you to get a drum
Get
set
a
again.
drum set.
He hadn't played in years,
Can't argue with that.
and he started assembling like a group of musicians. I was 14, I think. I'd been playing guitar for like 2 or 3 years. I showed Paul some of the metal, some of the music I was listening to in Sunday school, and he's like, "Here, well, why don't you check out these bands?" And one of them was Sacrament, and Living Sacrifice,
Mhm.
and Believer, some of those groups. So that was my introduction to that, and then we started listening to Extol too,
Yeah, stole.
in the early time, early Extol. So uh, that's kind of that where that came in, and then I started to see like, and at that time I'd be going to church. Like my parents and I were going to church all the time, but it wasn't until I started playing in the band and really seeing how it was connecting with everyone, and when we started playing these concerts with like 300 people would come to our concerts, and it was whoever was doing the marketing, Paul. I don't know if that was you, I don't remember, but we
Yeah,
had big groups coming up.
it was actually me and your mom.
Oh
Oh yeah,
wow,
Mom
Nice.
was-
Your mom was
rad
involved
mom
with
right
that.
there. That's
yeah.
rad.
Yep.
So we were like Christian. I wouldn't. We were praise, but
Yeah.
we had some rock, we had some funk, we had a little bit of heavy stuff every once in a while we'd throw in there, but we had like five girl singers, and I would sing sometimes. There was somebody else who would, another guy who would sing every once in a while. But yeah, it was once I started to see how the music reached people, and we'd bring in kids from underprivileged areas, and someone would always get up there. We'd have a speaker who would um, really just get into, whatever changed their lives. It could have been someone who was a former drug addict or somebody in the testimony. So it was just a lot of that really made me see like this, that God speaks to people, and this is just something I need to stay involved in. And then even more so a few years ago when Paul reached back out to me, because our group, we disbanded after about what, 15 years
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
longer.
Hmm.
We were together for like 15 years. So I was probably like in my early 30s, and everyone was kind of going their separate ways. I was having kids, everybody else was doing their own thing. And then Paul reached out to me a couple of years ago and just was like, "Hey, I think I'm doing a sacrament."
Reunion.
And like I was still playing guitar, like I still played, but I didn't play like, as often as I would need to get those types of licks back. But I didn't I thought we were going to be doing like cover songs at first, like redoing the sacrament. He's like, no, like, we'll be doing new music. Um, but then really the whole thing where we tried to have a reunion, but it just didn't work out. Not everyone was on the same page, but
Right.
I mean, where it's taken us now is I never would have
Amazing.
known. And I can't wait for people to hear our new music is even um, better. I guess I don't have how to say better, but it's going to be better, I think, than the
So
last.
so Nick, where did you become a believer in that journey?
I would say so. Again, I was raised to believe, but I think kind of like the moment. And I couldn't, it's hard for me because I don't know that I can pinpoint it as one moment, as more of like it was a period of time when
Mhm.
everything started to click. But it was probably in like that 14, 15 years old when I was like, okay, wait, I can play music like for the Lord. Like it never really struck me. I was just playing music, and like I was playing in a heavy metal band at the time. We were covering like Sepultura and stuff. But I was only 14. I didn't know a whole lot about
Yeah.
like the world. So I think that in that period is when it really clicked for me. And then as I got older, I was like, as I grew with the band, and Paul was always there involved too. Just that whole period of time, it just everything just really solidified as far as kind of where I wanted to go and be a believer. But I don't think I have like that one, like Paul had that one moment where he read that book and the next morning it clicked. Mine was a little bit more gradual. I feel like it was a lot of things that came together that finally just.
That's all right. We can't all be as cool as Paul, but
I
we
know.
can try.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think God had to smack. Do you ever hear that thing where like God has to get your attention, so he like smacks you with a 2x4? That was
Oh
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had tried other things to get me. I call it get me, to bring me to him. And there were people like riding up on bicycle. I'm walking home from work. People are riding up on bicycles next to me, like, "Hey man, do you know the Lord?" I'm like, "What is
What is
going
going
on? Like,
on?
Wow.
people get
Wow.
out of here. Like, stop bothering me." But literally, he was, that the scripture where it says he's like pursuing you.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
was pursued for sure.
that's
There
awesome.
was no doubt, and I needed it. I needed him to just like be relentless, like don't give
Yeah.
up on me.
And
And
I
he
think
didn't.
there's something to say too, like that Paul was there for a reason for me, I think too. And so my mom passed away in 2007,
Mhm.
but I didn't even know this till later. But Paul told me like one time my mom was sick and she said something to Paul. Paul, I don't remember her exact words, but it was like, I want you to watch over Nick or something like that.
Oh
What did she?
yeah, she came to me and said, "Listen, she knew she was sick, and we knew she was sick, but she said, listen, I need you to look after him for me."
Mhm.
And
I
there
went,
was no, we didn't know at the time. There was no reference. Like there was nothing that you could think of exactly why she said it. But
no,
right,
she just pulled me aside and said, "Listen, you need to promise me that you're going to take care of him, watch over him." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "You got it." There was
It's
no,
almost like God's got a plan. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
awesome. Well, I see Nick representing Sacrament there with your shirt. Nice.
Mhm.
So, Paul, why don't you just give us a brief history of Sacrament?
Ooh, brief. Okay. I could be brief. So right after I became a Christian, I decided my music was going to be for the Lord.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I'm not doing it for any other reason. This is who it's going to be for. It's going to be metal. Um, I guess the first person that I actually connected with was Eric Nye, the bass player.
Hmm.
And for years, like it took us probably 3 years, 3 years to finally get a full band.
Wow.
Just trying out different guitar players, different singers, different. It was really frustrating.
And they need and obviously they need to be believers too. Was that difficult back then finding believers to
Yes,
play metal?
yes,
Sure.
yes, because most people were not believers who played metal.
Right.
In fact, the one, so okay, I'll try and keep this short for you, Jimmy. Um, so I met Eric. The next person that we got was, I want to say it was Brian. It was Brian, the guitar player. Now, Brian was not a Christian, but man, his style, like if you hear the Testimony of Apocalypse album by Sacrament,
Sure.
that style, that picking and all that stuff, that's
Mhm.
him. That was our own influence for that album. Um, he just answered an ad. We put ads everywhere looking for anybody, and he
Mhm.
answered the ad. He said, "Hey, I'm interested to hear what you guys sound like." And we said, "Okay." So we played him a couple of the songs that we had done, and he started playing for us and was like, dude, this guy's really good.
Nice.
And but he's not a Christian. So believe it or not, they like locked me in the room with him. They locked me in the room with Brian and like basically was like, you need to get him to be a Christian because we need this guy in the band.
Wow. No pressure.
Literally. Yeah, no
Funny.
pressure. It's like, okay. Well, he did have a lot of questions. So I just started witnessing, telling him how God changed my life. This is what I've seen, you know.
Wow.
And at we didn't know it at the time, but at that time he was contemplating suicide.
Mm.
We had no idea. None of that had come out. We didn't even find that out until after the band was done. That he was contemplating suicide at that very moment that I got locked in the room with him.
Wow.
So just ministered to him, just kind of laid it out there. This is why, why we need Christ in our life, the whole thing. And praise the Lord, he accepted Christ right then.
Wow.
And that totally changed. So now that was Brian. And then we knew Mike from other bands. Eric had been in a band with Mike Tyrone, the singer, earlier, but it wasn't this style. It was more like just a metal band. But this was like Sacrament. This was a lot more heavier. And so anyway, Mike said, yeah, I think we could make this work. So he said, okay, so now we only needed one more guitar player, and that was the lead guitar player, and that's when Mike D. We'd asked him a couple times before previously, but it was really through seeing what Brian could play that made up Mike's mind. When he heard Brian play, he was like, dude, like that guy's great. Brian can't play lead guitar at all. Not at all. He can play rhythm like crazy. He cannot play lead. So that was the perfect marriage of how we came together. And then we came together in March of 1989.
Nice.
Literally by June of 1989, we were signed to REX Records. It took us 3 months.
How did that connection to REX take place?
That actually happened through Believer.
Nice.
We were friends with them, and they knew of us, and we knew of them, and we'd seen them a couple times. We'd seen them at a Barren Cross concert. They actually played they were the opening band for Barren Cross, so we knew them. They knew us, and it was actually before we were going to play a show together down in our own area. We were playing a show, and before we even played, that was our first show. Before we even played, they said, "Hey, by the way, REX wants to sign you."
Wow.
And we hadn't even played a show. So it was crazy.
Nice.
It was crazy fast how fast it happened once we all got together. And then from there, it just, it was like a whirlwind. I mean, we were playing all over the place. We were traveling all over the place. We were driving way too many miles. I think we did 30,000 miles in 1 year.
What did you drive?
It was like a minivan with a trailer, with like a
Oh, wow.
U-Haul trailer. And that's what we used. And
Classic. It's so classic.
we had all of our equipment and all of our roadies, everybody together, all in one van, and we would just go. Like we'd drive all the way out to like Oklahoma and play a show, and then drive back or drive to Texas and
I
back.
bet that van smelled great.
My wife said she wasn't going on the road trips anymore. She said,
Nice.
I refuse to go. I was like, I understand.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. But yeah, it was pretty brutal. We were basically not living in the van, but pretty much. Pretty much.
So that's awesome to hear about kind of Sacrament and how they got started. Nick wanted to hear a little bit about your background. Tell us a brief history of your band Providence and the College Man and the Social Cynic.
Yeah, so the only real band there would be Providence, meaning that the other ones were just projects I had done with a friend of mine that we never really went anywhere. But Providence was a band I had in high school. Actually, was one of the bands that I was in, kind of during and before the band Risen, which I was in with Paul. So Providence was actually I would say, and Paul saw us play a few times. We were like Metallica, Pantera, In Flame, like kind of a little bit of In Flames influence to some of the like Swedish metal.
Nice.
Like was melodic, but still heavy. And this is probably when I ranged from like 15 to 17 years old. I played for them, which I think it's funny that somehow the metal encyclopedia found that, because I don't even know if there's anything even out there, to be honest. So, but my roots came from, I was mainly playing like blues and like rock in my early, like, 10, 11-year-old, when I first started playing guitar. Like I was in the bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and kind of the whole grunge again. I was like an early 90s kid. So Soundgarden, all that stuff.
Do you have like a blues hero that you kind of look up to?
Yeah, one that's still alive would be like Johnny Lang. But Stevie Ray Vaughan was always my favorite.
Gotcha.
So I love, yeah, I mean, I loved anything kind of that he touched, anybody that he played with. Like played with guys like Albert King and BB King and all those guys too. So but yeah, I mean, I'm all over the place, kind of like you, Jimmy. Like I'm not really in the country.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's probably somebody in each genre that I can listen to.
Sure.
So, but yeah, and then yeah, so I mean, really, and then in college I played like cover songs at, in Westchester. I'd play like cover songs like open mic nights and things like that. But yeah, nothing really other than Risen. We had 3 CDs, and that was a mix. We could send you guys some stuff, but that was a mix of anything from like, like your praise and worship, slower songs to, we even did a couple songs that we would consider metal, I guess, or hard rock.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a little bit all over the place.
Nice.
Kind of sum it all up. But
all right.
But actually, I did want to point out one of the things Paul said about Brian's picking on that album. When we first got together to start this project, which initially was going to be a Sacrament reunion, I played with Eric Nye a little bit, the bass player, and he also kind of got that picking down that they had established. So, I have to give some credit to that. Like it opened my eyes a little bit to a different style of picking, which helped, on some of the songs on the Testament of Apocalypse album. So, I definitely, I picked something up from that experience. So that's what it's all about, though. I feel like I can, your influences are what they are, but you can definitely pull little things from each experience. And even that short time I got to play with him, I mean, I definitely learned, again, something new. So there's something to say for that.
All right, yeah. So I remember Sacrament from back in the 90s, of course, and just Testimony of Apocalypse was such a heavy album. I think that when it comes to the big, I don't know, people talk about, like in the group, for example, who are the big 4 of Christian metal or whatever, and also the biggest albums are the most important albums. Testimony of Apocalypse definitely stands up there. People say a lot of times, it's usually like, usually a toss up between Tourniquet, Deliverance, Sacrament. Who else? Like sometimes Mortification, because some of their music is thrash. Believer, Living Sacrifice, because like, of course, a lot of these bands had other eras also. Even Extol, like they've had thrash eras, they've had death eras, and most of these bands they've had different eras. But yeah, Testimony of Apocalypse. Vengeance, definitely can't forget Vengeance for sure.
Right.
They, Testimony of should I say Sacrament, and that album in particular, like just the riffing style and the as you all have been talking about, the riffing style and just the brutality of the vocals definitely has it stand out, because I would say an album like, say for example, Living Sacrifice's first album, or Jim Chaffin's no, not Jim Chaffin, I'm sorry, Greg Menier from the Crucified. Like when they did their albums, it was very like Slayer-ish. But I think Sacrament, y'all came at it was a step heavier. Vengeance, like as far as vocally, like they were definitely taking it to like, the like more of a depth type of sound as far as the vocals are concerned. But as far as riffing is concerned, I don't think there was anything in the Christian market that made, in my opinion anyway, that was really that wasn't like full on death metal. That was like that heavy and thrash thing. So yeah, I thought that was it. Just something interesting that, you know, an observation, for example. So let's talk about the name. First of all, of Sacrament. Like, how'd y'all come up with that name? And then also Testimony of Apocalypse. Like I said, I know it's an influential album, but what made y'all decide, we're gonna name our band Testimony of Apocalypse?
So you're talking Testimony of Apocalypse, the new band?
Yeah, so both bands, like
Okay.
why Sacrament and why Testimony of Apocalypse?
Okay, so Sacrament was just you know, we were just putting names out there, and I think it was Brian. I think Brian was the one that said Sacrament. He said, "What about Sacrament?" And we're like, "Okay, what does that mean?" It's like, "Oh, well, pure or holy." I was like, "That sounds like a Christian band," and it was close to Testament, so we're like, "Yeah, we'll use it.
Not
We'll
as
go
Christian
with it."
as Believer, though, right? I mean, you can't get more
Yeah.
Christian than Believer, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of what. Well, the band the band name before Sacrament became Sacrament, the band was Noise,
Oh,
Noiz,
Yeah.
and that was actually, you know, back in, it wasn't like Sacrament. It wasn't as heavy as Sacrament yet. It was getting there. It was like more like on the edge metal. And that the whole thing that people used to do is take the first name, like take the name and flip it. So it was actually Zion. Zion. We flipped it over to Noiz, Noise. I don't know. We were just like, that's a poser name. We're not using that. So we bailed on that and went with Sacrament.
nice.
And then I guess Testimony of Apocalypse, the name for the album, just came about because of the whole thing about the nuclear stuff. That was, I mean, that is what you're seeing on the cover. It's the guy reaching out.
Yeah.
The place has been nuked, and he's just reaching out. And what we wanted him to be referencing or whatever is like, help me, God. That's what he's reaching out for. I need help. I need help. So then when this band came out, the new band, we actually had kicked around, believe it or not, our first name was actually Mortal Agony.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
That was the name of the band, and that's also it's also a Sacrament song.
Right.
You know, we decided as once the 30-year reunion could not work, it wasn't going to work, it wasn't going to pan out. Everybody decided nobody's taking Sacrament. Like no band, whether they do a band or we do a band, we're not breaking apart and becoming like, oh, we're Sacrament West and you're Sacrament East. We're not doing that. Like, that's not happening. And we said we wanted Sacrament to stand on its own. So we said, okay, so we picked Mortal Agony, and which is a song by Sacrament. So we're like, well, we're not Sacrament, but we're Mortal Agony, which is a song by Sacrament. It's close enough. They're going to get the idea of where we're getting this from. I guess, would we have that for like 2 months, Nick?
I think so. Yeah.
About 2 months, right? We have it. And I'm talking to Eric Nye, the bass player. And he goes, dude, are you guys Mortal Agony? And I was like, yeah. Now they're doing a band that, you know, him and Mike decided to do a band.
Okay.
And he goes, our name is Mortal. We had not talked about that at all, right? He's Mortal, they're Mortal, we're Mortal Agony. I was like, we can't do that to the fans.
Yeah.
Like that is just cruel. Like, they're not going to know which band are you or you. So we said, all right, we're taking Testimony of Apocalypse then. That's my favorite song on the album anyway. And so we said, we're going to take that. And there's no doubt who we're coming from. They're going to know we're from Sacrament or have some background of, you know, because I've had a lot of people say, oh, why didn't you just keep Sacrament? It's like, no, we can't. We didn't want to do that. But we took the next closest name. When you type in Testimony of Apocalypse on a Google search, it brings up Sacrament and us at the same time. So
I think it's a great name. I mean, it really is fitting.
Absolutely.
Everything. I love the font on it, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Testimony of Apocalypse, I mean, honestly, it's probably the most recognizable. You know, as soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, this is a sacrament.
Yeah,
I
see,
mean, it's just undeniable. I was like, okay, this is a definite band that has something to do with sacrament for
yeah, we
sure.
were as close. We were trying to be as close to sacrament, like at least we thought, hey, we do have some background. People know who Sacrament is, so
Mhm.
that was kind of like our springboard to launch this band. Was like, hey, we should use the the marketing aspect of it, and people will know who we are pretty
Yeah.
quick.
Mhm.
How long have you been an official band now with Testimony?
When did we form, Nick? Was it 2021? It
Yeah,
was
it'll
early
it's
2021,
almost
right? Like
almost
February.
like
Very recent.
yeah, like almost 2 years.
Well, I must say, man, when y'all hit that, when y'all drop that album, I have seen posts and a lot of, I mean, it's getting the word's getting out there is what I'm saying, and I've listened to it and I really enjoy it. Um, so how did y'all come about as far as getting that album put together? Kind of what's your songwriting process?
Nick, you can handle that one.
Um, well, early on, we actually it was someone who told us. I think it was somebody from Believer. What was his name? Jeff.
Oh, Jeff King, the keyboardist.
Yeah, when
Right. Wow.
we had talked to him via Zoom, I think for and some early meeting, and because he was probably going to possibly do some keys on it or something. I forget exactly why he was involved.
Yeah, it was keyboard.
And he
Yep.
said, "Hey, have you guys ever heard of this program called BandLab?" And I said, "No, I've never heard of it." So BandLab, basically, you can just without having to have everybody send actual files, you just post it and you make your group private. So like Paul can see anything I post and I can see anything he posts. So I just started posting ideas. Like I would come up with riffs and I'd put them up there. And then so we started sharing it that way. And we're trying to figure out how do you create an album without everybody being in the same room? It was new for everybody.
Yeah.
So then we would start writing and then Paul would take the riff and then he'd put it on his end and he'd play drums to it and then we listen to it and we'd say, okay, well, let's do this, let's do that and change it there. So really it ended up just being, I'd write a riff, put together some arrangements, and then we would figure out, how it's going to work, where Mike's going to sing. Sometimes we'd have to add another chorus or add another part here and there, or take off a part. So it was really something kind of like a learning in progress. We just kind
Yeah.
of went with it. By the end, though, we had it, and now with how we're doing it, I mean, we have it
I
down
think
to
we're
a
pretty.
science.
I
Yeah,
think I would say by now we really do have it down to a
Yeah.
science now where Nick knows. Okay, this is what I got to do. I got to load it over here. I
yeah,
take it. I pull it into my computer software and do my drums and then I send it back to him and it's a lot faster than what it did when it first started. When it first started, it was like it was hard.
Did it take you about a year to get that album recorded?
yeah,
Mhm.
Nice.
yeah. I think some of it too. In the beginning, I was more kind of in the style, I would say, of Sacrament. Some of the first few songs that came out, uh, again, but I think it started to really take on its own. Some of the later tracks that were recorded, like "Lamb of God" and "A Day of Wrath," probably one of the last two songs that we really finished up. That's kind of more, I would say, what people are going to hear on the second album. Paul, would that be safe to say? Or, I mean, I would just say it's definitely more brutal.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
oh,
think I think this I think you're going to be I think hopefully people are going to be excited about the second album in that it's not going to sound exactly like the first album. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that we like to do is we like to I would say we like to grow. Um, I don't want people to listen to the second album and go, that sounds just like the first album. It's the same thing. Like you didn't change anything. There's
You're keeping
nothing.
it thrash?
Yeah, there's nothing. There's nothing new. I mean, I think I one of the things like even on the first album that I tried to do was deliberately not to play beats that I played with Sacrament. There's a
Hmm.
couple. There's a couple in there that are like, yeah, well, like a normal, blast beat I mean,
Yeah.
there's not really getting around that. But some of the other parts, I definitely would be like, I would be writing something and say, no, I can't use that because I played that with Sacrament. I can't do that on this album, so I have to play something different. And now, even now with the newer stuff that we're playing, it's like, well, I can't play that because I played that on the last album.
It kind of
I mean,
forces you
like
to
it's
be
always you're always moving forward.
more creative and all. So just to clarify, Paul, you're the drummer for
Yes,
Testimony of
sir.
Apocalypse. Nick, you're the guitarist. Michael's the singer. Does Michael also play bass?
No, I played bass and keys on the first album.
Oh,
Nice.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
So yeah, we have on this time around we actually we're having
Yeah,
some other
this is gonna be
musicians.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
different.
So Derek Corzine, if you guys are familiar with him.
Yeah, that's right. He sure is doing bass on this
I
album.
I
Yeah,
love
so
that guy. He's
yeah.
awesome. He's actually from my area
Yeah, yeah.
before he moved to Texas. Yeah, good dude.
So
Yep.
he's doing
Yeah.
he's gonna be doing some like, working his magic on the production side and playing some bass. I don't know if he's gonna play bass on every song, but he's definitely playing bass on some.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And
Dude, he's
Love
a
working
beast,
with him.
man.
and
Yeah, y'all. That's a good choice for sure.
we have some vocalists. I won't say who yet, but there's some secret
What do we got? About 8?
surprise vocalists that are going to be
Is
on
it
this one.
Jay? Is Jay the secret vocalist?
Maybe
yeah,
not. I didn't do it.
unfortunately, Mike is unable to continue at least on this album with some health things. Nothing life threatening, but
Yeah.
so we got creative, and we start talking to some people, and a lot of these people that are already in bands can't commit to a full album, but they're definitely willing to do a few songs. So
Nice.
it'll be kind of like a all-star
Lineup.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting. So, and that's kind of another thing too. Like we take a song, we're like, who does this sound like? We don't want to give a song that's, maybe more death to somebody who's, like a singer who doesn't do that style. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility there too.
Like a DJ album for metal.
Pretty
Yeah,
much. I mean,
I mean,
I
yeah.
think it's going to be interesting because I think people are going to be. They definitely can't say like. Did you ever listen to a metal album and you're like, man, I hate that singer?
Mhm.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, if they could just replace the singer, that band would be awesome.
Yeah.
This one, there's going to be every song almost is going to be a different singer for us. So one of the guys told me, he's like, hey man, you guys took a funky situation and you're making it really cool
Yeah. That's
by
metal.
doing this.
yeah.
And I said, hey man, we got to be flexible. We got to go on the fly. We didn't really forecast that this was going to happen.
Right.
So God's going to come up with something else. We're just going to
Yeah.
keep going forward.
And it's groups like a Christian metal group where we kind of had these relationships form over the last couple of years.
Right.
We're like, oh, that band's cool. I wonder what he's doing. So we made a lot of friendships and a lot of, from Paul being in the industry for so long, some people that he's reconnected with and people that I've just met through like these different groups. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of talent, and
Absolutely.
they're doing it for the right reasons. So,
And that really, I love to hear that. I mean, that I'm glad that the group, I mean, yeah, we promote the bands that are ministries and we do all these different things, but to hear that, y'all can able to form relationships there and do music together and all, man, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, it's quite a network.
it really
I
is.
would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, as far as the future, you all plan on doing live shows and you all assembling like a live unit to do stuff?
I would say never, but at the moment, it would be really tough for us to do live, only because like if you just heard Nick,
Right.
Nick played keyboard, bass, and guitar on the first album.
I want
So
to see how good he is. Come on.
Yeah, man.
it would be obviously it would be a challenge. We'd have to find people who would be interested in doing that. I did the, I told you I was driving 30,000 miles in a year. I've already done that.
Yeah.
Uh, if you guys don't know, or if you've never experienced it, it's rough.
Oh, I have
It is
definitely.
very rough. It tears you up. And I
Mhm.
was 23 when
Mm.
I was doing it. I'm not
Wow.
23
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Um, I mean, we used to get in it, you're driving, say, to Oklahoma, and it's going to take you 22 hours to get there or whatever. I would
Nice.
get in the car, the van, and I would drive for as long as I could. I drive for a living. That's my job. I would get in the thing and I'd drive for like as long as I can. If it's 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, I would drive as far as I could. And then I'd get out and then somebody else was driving. And
Mhm.
then we'd flip the guys in the back who were sleeping, they had to move up front. They had to drive.
Mhm.
Those days, like the days of traveling all over the place like that, I
Right,
think
right.
those days are over. I think it would be like, hey man, we want you to come play this festival, and here are your plane tickets. Done.
Mhm.
No
Wow.
problem. I have no
Yeah.
problems doing that. Would we be able to assemble a bass player, a keyboard player? The other thing is we're not playing together live. We've
Mhm.
not played together yet once. Not once. Still, even with this album, we've not played live. Nick is at his house. I'm at my house. Mike's at his house.
It's amazing
Mhm.
the technology, what you can do.
Yeah.
I'm just glad there's no auto tune on it because I don't I'm not a
Well,
fan of that.
like
None
people
of
that
that. None of
the
that.
people that say like they can't form a band at this point. Like I've had a couple people that I've been talking to on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, man, just do it.
Yeah.
Like you just got an electronic kit. Contact. You live in Texas. You could contact somebody from North Dakota and a guy and somebody from California. You can do it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to
Jay,
be.
how many bands are you in, Jay?
A million, it seems
I
like.
mean,
I'm
yeah, and you're not.
always doing stuff, man.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That the technology that you're talking about allows him to be in multiple bands, and yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
I think
Yeah, it's probably no less than 10 bands for sure.
oh my goodness.
Like that I've worked with. I've worked with Derek also, like just as
Oh yeah. Oh cool.
yeah, so he's
Yeah, I was.
really dope.
I think at a festival, if it was like a one-off situation. I mean, again,
Mhm.
most would probably be the biggest challenge is to find, you someone to do all the songs or at least enough songs to make it a set. Uh,
Mhm.
I mean, a bass player, yeah, like someone like Derek, or I'm sure like a session person could do the bass or something. But
Yeah, if we did a festival down in Texas and
Derek,
Derek was there, he would do it. He'd be like,
Oh yeah,
"Sure, I
yeah,
got
for
it."
sure.
He's good
Oh
enough
yeah.
to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
He
Yeah.
could just step
Derek,
in and be like, "What are we playing?" Okay.
if Derek watches this, he's gonna be like, wait a second, what? What'd you sign up for?
So one of the main goals that we have here at the Christian Metal Group is to promote bands like yours.
Yep.
A lot of people are familiar with the older bands that's been around like Sacramento or whatever, but Testimony of Apocalypse is new. You promote the gospel. You're great metal, which is this is a metal group. So that's why we got this idea and we did the poll and everything, and y'all what so y'all were what was it? I'm trying to remember now because I wasn't always involved. What did you was y'all number one or number two on that poll?
I was told we were number one.
Number one. Okay. I don't remember because Vicus
Yeah,
was the
look,
one
I'm
that
trying to remember too, but I know it was definitely you were in the
yeah.
top two for sure. And
Yeah, I know.
it kept going back and
Okay.
forth like
So number one, I apologize. Vicus is the one that put all that together and everything. So what and being a band and releasing one album and all, what would you say attributed to your fans really coming out and voting for you and all that to win this?
I mean, Paul and I both market and
Yep.
share a lot.
Good.
And I don't know, maybe just persistence.
Hey, that's awesome, man. Yeah.
And again, knowing a lot of people who kind of want to be in your corner.
Sure.
I mean, we're honored for this. I mean, we weren't expecting it. That's our fans. I would just like to say our fans are amazing.
Mhm.
Support us a lot in lyric videos and buying the album and everything. And I've been saying on my posts, like, guys, like, we really, really appreciate the support that you give us. We really need the prayer support too. I know a
Absolutely.
lot of people forget that part of it. They just like, oh, this band, this band. It's like, guys, we need your prayer too. We need that. We're doing this stuff, and I think that I've seen the power of prayer. That's what's powering us.
For sure. I mean, your band is a ministry, but you have to work and support your family. I mean, so yeah, prayer can help all those things for sure. Well, I mean, it is our prayer that more people will find out about your band and buy your merchandise and help support you. I mean, that's one of the reasons we do this. This is going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Facebook. All these will promote it. Jay, there you got any other last question?
You know what? Actually, I was going to ask, do you have any questions for us? I know that.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering how. I think I asked Jimmy off camera or pre-recording how it all got started.
Yeah.
Christian metal group, but
Yeah, so I can give a brief history. So I have a friend who was in a band called Edge of Eternity out of Greenwood, South Carolina, about an hour south and from me, total country there. And he started this, and he added me as an admin, and it was just a Facebook group. It's been over 10 years. I don't know, 11, 12 years ago now, maybe. And he's actually no longer on Facebook, and the group just started growing. And at the time, Vickis was one of the most active members. He's in South Africa. And so I added him as an admin, and we had a few moderators, and then we actually added Andrew out of Australia, who's in another a Christian rock band. And so we've added people as the group's grown to now over 42,000 people, and it's amazing. We really have a really good group of guys that are help us moderate and everything. And there's literally people from California to South Carolina, Australia to Norway, Canada. I mean, all over Sweden. So it's really awesome to get to hang out and meet with these people, and we pray for each other. We've helped each other through different things. So yeah, great question. Anything else?
Yeah, we're like the Illuminati of Christian metal, man. But yeah, it's really interesting to I mean, everything Jimmy said is definitely really cool. And of course, it's really cool to meet so many people from bands, especially bands I grew up listening to, and doing these interviews. I think me and Jimmy have been probably the most consistent as far as doing interviews, and it's been really cool. I mean, in a way, it's a way that we, like Jimmy and I, have kind of bonded like over things like this, and some of our likes and some of our experiences, and it's been like that with a lot of people. I was kind of laughing like today, just thinking like, he's asking questions. I'm like, dang, that's like one of the questions I would have asked and that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, like we're around each other a whole lot, but it really is a brotherhood. It's I've been a moderator for like 2 years now, maybe 2.5 years, something like that. So yeah, so for me, it's like I said, this has been great. A lot of it's been educational. With 42,000 people, you're gonna have like, of course, 42,000 personalities, and sometimes
not everyone's a believer, and you can't expect a non-believer to act like a believer, and a lot of people don't get that. Now they do have to follow the rules within the group.
Yeah, they do have to follow the rules, absolutely. And a lot of times you almost can't expect believers to act like believers. It's like, like there's definitely like, and then you have denominational lines, and you have language barriers, and just all kind of stuff. Even mental barriers, like, so dealing with things and trying to deal with things in a Christ-like manner, deal with things in a just with tact. It gets interesting, but I think that's the beauty of having the moderators and administrators. We talk with each other about it, keep each other accountable.
I've actually got to meet Carl from Australia. He came to Florida and South Carolina, and I got to hang out with his family, and so that was really cool. And hopefully, I don't know, we're trying to plan and see if some of us can meet up at Furnace Fest. So Carl from Norway just bought his tickets, so he's excited to. I told him, Extol's from where the area he lives in, and he's got to go halfway across the world to see him. So wrapping this up though, what can we do as a metal community, as Christian metal group, to help support your ministry and your band?
Right.
I would say number one, prayer.
Yeah,
that's my thing. I know, hey, like if you guys, I know times are tough out there, and to help support us through getting merchandise and vinyl and CDs, that's great. But I would say my number one priority would be the prayer aspect.
Good.
Nice. And how can we contact? How can people contact you? Should I say? Yeah. Like,
I mean, through Facebook, they can contact me, Paul, or even the testimony of Apocalypse.
mhm.
Goes back to me anyway, or Paul.
Okay.
And then as far as supporting, I mean, we're now on Rocks Records.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So we have the CDs through Christian Metal Distribution, and then the vinyl, which is now out.
Will you in fact be dropping a new song on myspace.com?
My
That's my favorite question of the night.
MySpace.
Hey, it's still around and it's geared towards musicians, so that's a fair question.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate y'all's time, and we look forward to hearing the new music for sure.
God bless you all.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You too.
Got it.